Shut a moment, the fears of my heart. Since I awaken, I understand everything's a part of who I am. Right time, breathing in first. Deep down the moment, the fears of my heart. Since I awaken, I understand everything's a part of who I am. Welcome. Hello to all of you. This is Tony Guerin, and we're here for another episode of Tune In and Find the Others. And we're tuning into ourselves, we're tuning into our bodies, listening deeply into our spirit. What is the world teaching us today? And how can we live more mindfully, live more abundantly, tap into that infinite, creative energy that always exists within us. We have an amazing guest today. Who's a friend, I would say a past life lover is one way you could put it. I feel very strongly about this human, and they are working to see the world through the eyes of love. They are an alchemist. They are a creative entrepreneur, puppeteer, wondrous human that is making their way into the world, through the world, one breath at a time, one step at a time, giving gratitude and walking their path. And that's what we're trying to do here, is connect with people that are walking their path, and regardless if they stumble, anybody anywhere will stumble, and this human, I feel, has a lot to offer as far as what it means to stumble and keep moving forward. I'm grateful for this moment. Anybody that's listening right now, welcome. You are loved. You are appreciated as you are. At least through this podcast, wanted to communicate just appreciation. And part of me feels that I can be gushy with that kind of stuff, and that it can feel that way, and I acknowledge those judgments as just judgments, and they're not. It validating those judgments takes away from the validity of the energy that I'm putting into the words that I'm speaking. And so when I say something along the lines of I love you, that comes off to many different people in many different ways. But I can say for a fact that I genuinely, in my heart, in my soul, love you and know that you can make it through whatever you're going through. And you will, and we will. That being said, I have a couple people that have decided to donate to this podcast to be sponsors, and I want to give them acknowledgement and a shout out and love. And the first one is Bedroom Ceilings, which is a band in Grand Rapids. Bedroom Ceilings has put out a number of different albums, EPs, and they are heavily influenced by like folk rock, but their lyrics are really deep, and they elicit the help from a lot of different musicians in the Grand Rapids scene here for their recordings. And so you'll hear people from Earth Radio, you'll hear people from the Nuries of the world, and you'll hear the I think Zach Volkers maybe was on one of them. But there's musicians here in Grand Rapids that have really helped with their project to get onto the platform that it is right now. And I'm super proud of them for pushing through as this pandemic is happening. But yeah, they decided to bless us and donate to this podcast. So props to them, and you should check them out. betterthanceilings.bandcamp.com. And then the other advertisement I have to share. Advertisement sounds weird. It's not really an advertisement. It's more so a I don't know, sharing good information. That's what, like, I'm trying to make it as authentic as possible and just let it come out. Because although, like, our world is bombarded with advertisements and, like, people trying to sell us things, I think it's important to communicate services that people provide that you trust and that are doing really good things in the world. And so that's why Bedroom Ceilings is one of the sponsors here. And so the second person that we're communicating about or recommending is Lemieux Smithing. My friend Joseph Lemieux makes knives. He's a blacksmith, and he makes knives, swords, restoration for old works of metal, and he's been doing this for 12 years, so he knows what he's doing, and it's really, really beautiful work. He used to go by Athena's Edge. Now it's Lemieux Smithing, and you can get in touch with them if you need, like, a new knife, or I don't know, if you need a sword for the apocalypse, like Jesus riding on a white horse with a flaming sword, striking down the oppressors of evil. Yeah. So yeah, check that out. It'll be in the description of this podcast. And I want to introduce the guest that we have today. My goodness. Phoenix Wright is... I don't want to put this in, like, hierarchical terms, but it goes without saying that I have a strong bond with this human, and feel as though they are creating content in this world that is serving the minds of the youth, that is allowing for people to step into a space of authenticity, the present moment, and shining forth their brilliance. They're someone that's unafraid, and not only unafraid, but welcomes their gender expression. And I think it's a beautiful thing to see someone radiantly being themselves. And I was gonna read off a, like, bio for them, but I think that probably should do it. And here we are with Phoenix Wright.
Hello, Tony.
Hi, Phoenix.
How's it going, my friend?
It's interesting. I did not get a lot of sleep last night, but I'm feeling so present now and really excited to share a conversation with you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Excellent introduction. There was a lot in there, very heartfelt. Past life lover, huh? We're gonna have to talk about that one.
I felt that way for a long time. I don't think we've ever spoken about it, but I
You've never
definitely.
mentioned that to me. Every time we were on stage together, that's what you were thinking? That's where the magic came from.
Not every time. But yeah, it's an honor to have you on the podcast, and I'm so excited about where this is gonna go because there's no knowing. There's no knowing where we're going.
That's true. Yeah, I've been so excited since you saw you get this going. I was looking forward to the day that we'd have this conversation, and here we are.
So, what are you doing in your life?
Yeah, I mean, how long is the podcast?
Um, is
A
it
lot.
is
Um,
that
since the pandemic hit, my life has 180'd in uh m- I'm gonna say magnificent, but that doesn't mean good, but in magnificent fashion. It's amazing how quickly things changed. And um yeah, I'm not having the year that I thought I was, much like many other people, but what do I have going on? I'm focusing a lot on my passions as I usually do, which is music, acting, which has now turned into puppeteering, keeping Closet Fort Kingdom alive, doing a lot of live streams, still doing some stuff with Fireflower, focusing a lot on my healing practice, getting my Reiki business up and running. But I've been really cut off from my community. I'm like floating around Ohio currently, which is very different than where I thought I'd be right now. You know, um, before about this time last year, I got rid of most of my possessions and headed out to California to work with Grand Artique, and yeah, I'm not doing that. So yeah, just I've got a life coach. I'm trying to get an entrepreneurial focus in my life right now and do a lot of the things that I've done with production companies over the years on my own, I guess. So that's been my focus, get my own kind of company started and turn my hobbies lucrative. Same journey I've been on for a long time.
you mentioned Closet for Kingdom, and I know what that means, but what does that mean to you? And what is it? Just explain it, possibly to the people that are listening.
Okay. Closet Fort Kingdom, or CFK, is my it's like a family entertainment platform, and it's taken many shapes and forms over the years. It's been an installation at Nonsense Night. It's been a theme camp at Burning Man Regionals, and it's now a video series. But it's more of an idea, and I have an entire world written with characters and fantastical lore, fueled by uh, all these characters as they go through different kind of spiritual awakenings and moralistic dilemmas, and that gets showcased on stage and through videos. I offer like creative opportunities for other people to get on stage. We do a lot of workshops. We do a lot of musical performances, host other bands. So it's many things. But yeah, family entertainment spectacle first and foremost. My goal is to create holistic entertainment for both kids and kidults alike, and uh, with like a spiritual premise. I want to create entertainment that is enlightening, that children watch. You might have a fire spinner on stage, or we might be discussing our shadow selves or something. And I want them to be so amazed. They look up at their parents and go, "Wow, Dad, what does that mean? How do they do that?" And to have their dad look down and, we're introducing such concepts that uh, many people still don't really grasp, and have them look down and go, "I have no idea. Let's find out together." And to really ride that line
Mm,
of entertainment.
yeah, that let's do this together. The I think it was the DAC that our community Grass is working through. It's a music venue. They have this idea to call, instead of do it yourself, do it together.
I like that.
So like the
DYT.
whole, yeah, DYT. And how do we make um, how do we provide spaces or create spaces together that allow for shared, almost like a shared economy, like a shared it's like a shared economy of artistic creativity. um
I need to go to more grass meetings because that's exactly what I've been trying to get going in my life.
yeah, you really do, though. I mean, this is blossoming more than I've ever seen grass blossom ever. um and it's something that, if you've been to grass before, maybe you have a certain idea of what it can be, and what you've experienced. But the level of production, organization right now, it just feels so authentic and feels so like people are really putting their hearts into this thing right now. And what a time to do it. You know what I mean? Um, but you mentioned Nonsense Night, and Nonsense Night. Uh, Alex has said before that Nonsense Night is like the sister group of Spectacle, or of the Nonsense community is like a sister organization or like community of Grass. And I was curious if you'd like to share like what that has meant to you, and what happens there.
Nonsense Night is ongoing. Um, but when I talk about it these days, it always seems as though it's something of the past. It was a beautiful gathering. It is a beautiful gathering, inspired by the Detroit area Burning Man community. And we created once a month artistic spectacles involving musicians, visual artists, vendors, quest design. That was my addition to Nonsense Night. Um, Social experiments, you name it, fire spinners. It was like a one night burn, and it was always held together with a loose theme, and coming up with the thematic elements was another pride of mine. I was pretty deep in the production of Nonsense Night for almost 5 years. We put on nearly 60 of them, one a month, nonstop, and it was pivotal for my growth. That was like my blank canvas to really start throwing ideas at the wall and see what stuck. I got to become a different character every month. I got to play as much music as I wanted. I discovered, I met J Rose there. We started Fireflower at Nonsense Night. We had another band, two other bands that were just like, let's do this, and we could just do that. We had our own stage, we had our own platform, and we had hundreds of people to show up and give feedback every month. It was pivotal on my journey, and I could see myself making a similar event like that in the future. But have you ever read the book Who Moved My Cheese?
No.
It's an awesome book. I highly recommend it. It's a real easy read, but the basic premise is there's four characters: Hem and Haw, which are little people, and Sniff and Scurry, and they're mice.
Mm.
And the four of them go out into this maze every day, and they look for their cheese. Okay. Um, But Sniff and Scurry, they're super smart. They lace up their sneakers, they go out and look for cheese, and the four of them find it at one point. And eventually, Sniff and Scurry, like they leave and they don't go back to that cheese anymore. Hem and Haw weren't so smart, and they kept going back to that cheese, and they couldn't tell that it was starting to like mold. And eventually, the cheese is gone. They've eaten it all, and they keep returning to that same spot every day looking for this cheese and expecting somebody to bring it back, while Sniff and Scurry had already saw that the cheese had moved on. Eventually, Hem ventures out into the maze to look for new cheese, although he's very scared to do it and he has to leave Haw behind. And he ends up, leaving Haw in that room, and he finds Sniff and Scurry in a bigger trove of cheese than he had ever found before. And so there's all these little idioms and like proverbs and stuff that Hem writes on the wall for Haw if he ever decides to follow. But the basic idea was that, you be aware of the signs, and when the energy changes, you have to follow it. You have to flow.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's that time of nonsense is done, and those skills were necessary for me to get my job character acting with Grand Artique and becoming a production assistant with them.
Yeah, something you said about when you feel that energy start to shift, follow it, pay attention. Like that's what I took from it, at least. It's like
You got to trust it. You got
gotta
to know.
trust that the change is for the better. There's some kind of action that's happening that is that you have to that it would behoove us to just be aware of, and first awareness, and then you'll know what to do. Like once you have the awareness, you follow it, you try to speak to it, communicate, community, and you find where the soft spot is, and
Learning how to trust, I think, that's the key for me. As soon as you feel it, your brain wants to bring in logic and try to talk you out of it. Like, no, don't jump. That's a risk. But I've jumped so many times, Tony. I live there in this. You mentioned falling down and getting back up, and yeah, sometimes it definitely feels that way. But it's taking a risk and launching, even when things appear to be going well. Just trusting that every time you jump, there's going to be something to carry you, and most of the time, it's your own wings. You end up finding right before you're about to hit the rocks. So. Even in this crazy situation I've been in now, like that's been keeping me going, and made me pursue a life coach and learn how to take my life into my own hands at a level that I've never really done before. I've always been very solitary and like, I'm gonna build this, I'm gonna create all these things, but I've always like relied on other people, and being cut off from people during quarantine has really made me learn a lot of the skills that I need. My skills for Closet Fort Kingdom have skyrocketed. I relied on people for that for years, but really I just needed to create my characters and get the story out there. And I love what's happened the last 6 months with my characters.
Yeah, I feel like that about this podcast too, because for a while I needed so many people's help on like figuring out how to do this, because I wasn't technologically savvy with OBS and trying to figure out how to balance everything. And now I feel like I have a very simple system down to where once I stop this recording, it's ready to go. Like I don't have to do anything else to it. And it's a really cool thing that I've gotten to this point. There was so much intention that was put into it. Just like all of our creative endeavors, like when we really feel that something needs to be put out into the world or something is coming through us, it speaks, it it calls out for attention, true intention. You know what I mean? Like, just really being present with that thing, and not getting so lost in, oh, what will this mean to other people? Because I think that's the thing that gets that trips people up the most. It has tripped me
What will
up.
people think of this? How's this going to look? Yeah, certainly. I mean, I've been trapped there. There's been times, and I will return there. I think that's learning how to be authentic regardless of circumstances it's scary. And we're part of a very money-based society, and if who you are isn't valuable in the eyes of the masses, it's hard to show up and be that. But the reality is, the more you trust who you are, you're going to be aligned with the right situation, and you're going to skyrocket so much faster. You bypass a lot of that struggle that a lot of people think is the baseline for their reality. They think that that's just business as usual, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I think the difference of, like, people who aren't practicing falling into that moment as much as they can. If this is you, like, that feels very scared to jump. Not that I don't feel scared, or Phoenix doesn't feel scared when we make that jump, but it's like there's a certain point that you get to when you've done it enough times. When I've done it enough times, and I feel as though that I'm at the point where that's a comfortable place for me. Like,
it gets easier.
Yeah, like that's what you were talking about. It's like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to be absolutely 100% authentic here and just go into it and know that I could fail and just do it anyways.
When you brought that up, I had a vivid image of anytime you go to play a show to an empty crowd. What are you going to do? Not do your set anyway? No, you change your mindset, and you're like, all right, boys, this is a practice. Or we're going to practice, like it counts. Or maybe it's to like one or two people. We're going to give those one or two people an amazing show. And I think that that's the same thing, whenever you're unsure about this new direction, you just got to change your mindset about it. You mentioned alchemy in my intro. I've actually been revisiting The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And one of my favorite quotes from that book is, when you want something, the entire universe conspires in helping you achieve it. And, really learning that relationship. And I think that's what I was hinting at by saying trust earlier, is that you might feel alone, but when you feel tapped into something, the alchemist calls it your personal legend. When you have faith in that, that's when the magic starts to happen. And you have so many synchronistic events, things just fall in place on days when you really needed it. And it keeps you afloat no matter what. I mean, through my path, I've had so many people say, you'll never, be an artist or a musician, or you don't have the proper training, or, you weren't born into it. Those are people that have given up on their dreams. And half the time we're trying to appease people that don't have the courage to do what you're doing. And they're trying to talk you out of it.
Yeah.
We don't have time for that. We're too busy trying to make things happen. We're changing this world around here.
Yeah. And I think it goes back to the importance of community, of people that are truly, genuinely supportive of your path, and how important that is in our world right now. where people are finally, due to the pandemic, I feel like many people tapped into what they actually want to do with their life. Everything got placed on hold, so they're able to actually listen to their heart. They're able to actually feel into what my spirit wants to create, or what my creativity is trying to do for the world or for other people. How can I serve other people? How can I serve the planet? And I could not be more happy that this all happened. And it's important to acknowledge the deaths, and it's important to acknowledge a lot of the other things that have happened during this time, including the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the continuing marginalization of communities. And that's why I think it's so important as this wraps around, how we were just talking about, like, the importance of community, and how when you have that community around you that is able to lift you up and not tear you down away from your dreams.
We've done a lot of work through our artistry and community building to, your podcast was very aptly named, tune in and find people very similar to us. We built very strong communities. The thing that's been really getting me down, and I know I don't want to focus too much on this, but just watching some of these communities that I thought were super strong just shatter as the different belief systems come out, or different realizations about, like, individuals at the hearts of certain communities surface. People are upset, and they're getting at each other's throats, and there's massive amounts of injustice, and I get lost in that every day too. I become a keyboard warrior sometimes, and I gotta, like, breathe and be a source of love. I mean, that's what I'm here to do: forge a creative path and kind of keep the pieces of the clock moving healthily. And then that's my focus through my healing practice, which has been taking more of an upswing through quarantine now that I have less performance opportunities. But yeah, just not losing ourselves too much in the drama of it, but yet still standing up for injustice. It's a weird balance to figure out.
Because you gotta, like, if you're a healer, right, you have to do your craft. Like, it's your, that's your life's purpose. But part of healing too is letting go of what no longer serves, and letting die what needs to die. And I think confronting, it's just like an act of love, like confronting when things are imbalanced, and ingenuity is present. That communication, I think, is very important, and that comes off, that can spiral into dark places. But if you're willing to go down there and navigate it with love, you know what I mean?
That's the key. A lot of humans they're not even aware of what shadow work is. I mean, some people still think they had a bad day, or maybe they're depressed and they're stuck there, and like we're not ever taught, like, what those spaces are for. That we're on a whole pendulum of human experience, and people don't understand shadow work. They end up getting trapped, and we need more systems in place that really teach people how to stare down the hallway of their demons and make friends with them, make peace with them, instead of hide in your comfort zone and rail against anything that threatens to pull you out of it. We need to get comfortable dancing with our demons.
Yeah, which is almost the opposite of, like, what some people would say, because it's just different perspectives on it. It's different lenses that we're seeing through.
It comes down to
As far as comfortability, you know what I mean?
are you resisting, like because it's going to keep showing up. It's just something you keep sweeping under the rug, because then you probably need to deal with it. But um if you can maintain some semblance of homeostasis and go through your day without like delving intentionally into what would be considered negative moods, then some people might not, think that there's much value in shadow work. But if you're really resisting that place, like, the only way through the fire is just dive right in.
I think a lot of what we're talking about is love. Is like our experience with heartbreak. I was thinking throughout this whole conversation how deeply this relates to like our relationship with the other, no matter what that is. If it's I mean, we have all kinds of relationships. They're all relationships. But the separating degrees of intimacy, our ideas and how things need to be placed for each person, or boundaries, or those kind of things.
We live right on top of each other. We like to live in cities, just absolutely right on top of one another. Have you ever heard of Dunbar's number?
I think I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Dunbar was a scientist that did a bunch of research on chimpanzees and studied their societal structures. Specifically, he really studied their brains and their behaviors, and saw that the ideal number of chimpanzees in a civilization is around 200. Any more than that, society starts to break down. They start to fight. They start to have a lot more drama. But under that number, they're harmonious and they really thrive. They all know each other. They have healthy relationships within their tribe. And then he also like correlated that to our human brains in the same areas, and we're not too much different than chimpanzees. Well, I think we like to think we are, but I think he posited that humans could probably hold about like 500, maybe 1,000 in modern times. Our brains have continued to evolve, but I have more than that, and more friends than that on Facebook, let alone people I've deleted, family members, acquaintances, passersby on the street, people I've only seen at a show. Um, Everyone that, if you're telling me a story about somebody and now I pick that up, we're bouncing around names and numbers. In my 30 years, I've probably interacted with over 100,000 humans through travel, and it's massive. And we're supposed to remember all that and hold space in our lives for everyone's point of view. It's it's insane, and we've been stretching ourselves to our breaking point. And we've turned money into the new tribe. If you run out of money, you're out of the tribe. So now
Right.
it's a rat race against all these other people for your slice of the pie. So we become distrustful of them because they're all other players in this game. So when you meet somebody, you automatically are like, what kind of person are you? What area of society are you in? And there's like there's certain times when I meet somebody, I'm like, is this person in the same field as me? Do I have something to learn from them? I sometimes even think, are they like part of my competition? Am I going to be competing with them for like clients? And that's a weird thought. It's usually never real, and I, get rid of that real quick. But thoughts like that pop up because we've been trained to play this game.
Yeah, it's reflected in a lot of aspects of our society, right? Like just the nature of being in America, in the United States. I feel like is highly competitive. Capitalism itself.
So backwards. It's so backwards. You know, we're the only country that has credit scores.
I know that China has a social credit score.
I think that's a newer thing, yeah, that they've just
Yeah.
added. But
Yeah.
I was studying a lot of these differences recently. I saw this post somebody had put online about like all these countries have cancer wards or cancer centers where you can just like go in without a referral and uh, get checked out and see like what's going on. Where here it's a system of like you got to get a referral, we'll bounce you around to here. You got to give this person money. You got to give this person money. It's a crazy game that we've invented, and I can't believe we just blindly accept it.
Why do we accept it?
Comfort zones.
And I guess it's important to say, why do I accept it and why do you accept it?
I try not to. I mean, there are certain aspects that I certainly still subscribe to a comfort zone. I like to have a bed to sleep in. I like to eat like gourmet food. I have a like an advanced taste profile. I like to have entertainment, like to subscribe to certain stories. I mean, those are all like comfort zones. People don't think about that, you know. Um, but to a lot of people, that's their fancy car and their social status within like their little cul-de-sac, and any kind of new idea that challenges that threatens their identity and who they have built up, like that kind of comfort zone where you're uh, tying your entire identity with a certain belief structure that really limits what you could be. And when people are marching down the street with a different idea uh, about life than you immediately recoil and see them as other.
Yeah. Like an invading army, so to speak.
Exactly like that. Yeah.
And I think it's easier to then go straight to the judgment instead of go straight to the questioning of, like, the genuine questioning of what are these people's needs and what are they speaking about. And I think we've built up a framework for our society in the form of comfort, in a form of making everything accessible at all times.
Gotta have my Cheez-Its.
Or my Blizzard, or my coffee, or my and that's where you churn out the Karens of the world. I feel like that's that's kind of where that comes from. Is like
That's exploded. Everybody is either a boomer or a Karen. I don't see when memes start like exploding into our daily lives like that, and we reduce everybody to a name. We're still trying to just pinpoint exactly what somebody is and then
right.
label them. Like that idea of calling somebody a Karen, I mean, that it limits what else they believe in, because you think you know what a Karen is and the kind of person that Karen is, and the second that you call them that, you're limiting what they can be in your eyes, which influences that person. It influences their personal legend. I think thought forms are very, very real. And the more a populace thinks a similar thing, it gives it so much energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Terrence McKenna really understood this.
Certainly.
He understood that the way that memes were going to propagate in society was going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. And he wasn't just talking about like memes, like the way we know him from like Facebook and stuff. Like, he was talking about the spread of ideas in a culture, and the way that some ideas are just so easily transmittable that it just changes everything. And I think that's what
Programming humans at an alarming rate.
yeah, for good and for bad.
Certainly, I think it could be. I mean, there are beneficial posters, beneficial memes. I see one of those, I'll share it. Spreading the love around. And I think that I'm attempting to do what a lot of those memes are doing, and that's make somebody feel some sort of way. We're all fighting for space in each other's heads. It's a bizarre thing.
Colonizing the mind. It's like that's the next thing to colonize, right? You know, because we've colonized the better part of the world. Humans have, at least, and part of the next step of trying to cling on to control is colonizing the mind and almost implanting belief systems that fuel giving away our power to people that want to keep their level of power in place.
That's the truth. That is absolutely the truth. And there's been days when I definitely sit and I'll spiral down that, and I think that that's definitely what's happening. But I always come back, and you've mentioned it a couple times, to one guiding source, one guiding fuel for my journey, and it's love. And my best way to express that is through creativity, authentic expression, pursuing all of these, dreams that I'm always trying to, grow and expand, to, yes, to become lucrative, but to signal boost and to use love almost as a rebellious force, to fill up our humans' hearts so much that there's no room for their brains to be programmed.
Yeah. So you're living from the heart, and you're not living from trying to conceptualize and figure out and like logistically like map out everything.
Oh, there's a balance. When you're
Yeah.
trying to create an artistic empire on your own, yeah, you have to learn all those things.
Right.
And
Right.
that's the downside of like living from your heart too much, is you got to figure out business, turning
Yeah.
yourself into an LLC and doing taxes. And that's a very logistical mindset that arguably pulls a lot of energy away from my heart. But balance, and that's important in all things.
And
Shadow and light.
yeah, I think that's a big part of like when we're talking about the state of the world, and like why isn't it like changing as fast as we want it to, right?
It's changing rapidly.
It's oh man. I would
We might not be seeing the results we want. It's changing so quick right now.
right, right. Well, that's the thing, is like I feel like we have everything available at us at all times, that convenience factor, and so we're having information fly at us so fast that we don't take in how short of time it's been. Like literally, the United States was the United States killed an Iranian general on January 2nd of this year. Doesn't that seem like so long ago?
It's pretty long ago.
And then the wildfires happened. And I'm not just trying to highlight the like quote unquote bad things that have happened. I'm just saying it's mind-blowing how we get stuck into the moment so often that we forget how quickly, in comparison to years past, like I feel like, and maybe this is just an illusion, it very well could be, but I feel like things are rapidly speeding up the more we live.
I've always wondered about that. I don't know if that's like a personal thing. Like summer seems so short, not just because of the pandemic. Is it because you had more years to compare it to? Like when you were 5, a summer was like, wow, that was 20% of the summers that you'd ever experienced. But now that you're almost 30, Well, that's a much smaller percentage. And so like your concept of time kind of telescopes because you have more of it to compare it to. It certainly seems to be both speeding up and yeah, like compressing in certain areas. So much has happened for me since January 2nd. It's unreal. And many humans.
It's amazing. Like there's so much that we can do with this moment right now. There's so much that we can there's so many directions to go. There's so many creative opportunities. Um, there's so many ways in which the world can shift in an instant right now. And that to me, I meet that with excitement. And I think that like for me personally, I it's not that I don't want to face it with fear. It's that I already have in a lot of ways for years
Oh yeah.
have felt intuitively that there's a lot of this that is going to be fearful and that is going to be very scary. And it's not something that is a joke. It's not something that is uh I it is what it is. Uh and I think if you've done the shadow work or you're doing the shadow work, you can find a place within you that sees what's going on in society and in our social apparatus, like as it's happening right now, the social climate. There's a way to meet that with courage. There's a way to meet that with love. There's a way to meet that with, hey, I know that this is going to be that I can see that this is uncertain. I can and that's the thing is like I think I'm trying to choose every day to embrace what I don't understand and embrace the possibilities of what could come next and not let my brain fill in those possibilities.
Well, as long as you're in control of it, I think that you got most of it figured out. Embracing where you want to go, I think that you have to decide who you want to be in this new world and just align with it. And if we had more humans doing that rather than acting out of, well, if this happens, I'm going to become this, or I'm afraid of this because it's going to do this to me. I've been studying so much on like archetypal design for this new like story-based one-on-one coaching program I'm working on. I'm taking elements of narrative therapy and infusing them in Reiki with a bit of music therapy as well. Um, and a lot of times when our life isn't working for us, we aren't fitting who we are as a puzzle piece into the puzzle in the right spot. And either it's because we've changed the person that we are, the archetype we subscribe to, or we're unsure of who that is. And when you decide who you're going to be, this is how I'm showing up in the world. You figured out your values and what you stand for, and you move forward with that. Everything just aligns around you rather than you trying to fit this unshapen piece into a world where you're allowing yourself to be influenced. So if you know who you are, like, yeah, embracing what's possible and going forward confidently that's the work. That's what you get from doing shadow work. Once you've gone out of the muck and the mire, you've figured out who you don't want to be. You've let go of that person and you've acknowledged those fears, and you've chosen that they're not going to be a factor for limiting your success anymore. And another alchemist quote There's only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve, and that's the fear of failure. If you are constantly afraid of, oh, this reality, or oh, this, or oh, this, you're living that reality that you're afraid of every day. But if you're showing up authentically and working towards the world that you want to see, it's going to change for you. Every day you're going to be supported and you're going to have opportunities to rise to that challenge. If we had more humans doing that, not focusing so much on, oh, this is falling apart. Oh, did you see that? Oh, nonstop. That's how so many of my conversations with my friends start. And I'm like, well, what do you have going on? What are you building? Let's talk about that. And people think that it's fruitless or pointless now. And I think that it only becomes pointless when we say that it is and when we give up. Those little acts of light, they keep us going. When I see somebody online still creating out of defiance and sharing their hearts with the world, I know that they're still good in this world, and it's worth fighting for, Mr. Frodo. And I'm think that every little act of love is a rebellion to this shadow that's creeping over the land right now.
Phoenix,
Tony,
I love you.
I love you too, my friend.
This has been wonderful. You're wonderful, and I appreciate the work that you do in your heart space and in your mind, and reaching out, communicating, and living into your truth. I appreciate it.
Living into my truth is all that I can ever promise. And I'll always do that. Thank you for this opportunity. You're doing good work. I miss playing with you often. I'm going to have to swing through for another Why Not set soon.
Are you coming on the 12th?
We'll talk about it.
I think that's the cue for the music. So, everybody, thank you for tuning in and finding another human. We're sending it off. Blessings to you, your heart space, your everything you are. You know the drill. I've said it a million times and I'll say it a million more. You can do this. I love you. Go out and be the change. Peace, y'all.
Woo!